Tonight, early edition at 6. There will be reunions for family members separated by the Korean War sometime in the coming weeks. And the two sides start trying to hammer out details. Pyongyang also expresses a desire to restart tours at Mount Geumgang. South Korea and the U.S. kick off 12 days of joint training exercises. The annual drills that mobilizes more than 80,000 troops are usually met with condemnations by Pyongyang, but they've been silent so far this year. Nearly 900 people have been killed in Egypt since security forces forcibly broke up two pro-Morsy protests in Cairo last week. The international community stands in opposition to the violence, and many countries are now reviewing their relations with the North African nation. These and more coming up, so stay with us.
It is 4 a.m. in Panama City, noon in Tel Aviv, and 6 on a Monday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Han Daeun, filling in for Moon Geumgang this week.
And I'm Daniel Chan. Thank you for joining us. We'll start with the details that still need to be ironed out for inter-Korean talks.
While North Korea has accepted Seoul's proposal for talks on resuming family reunions, the two sides have yet to decide on the venue.
The South has also not responded to the North's offer for talks on reopening the Mount Geumgang resort to South Korean tourists. Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
South Korea said Monday that talks on resuming reunions for separated families and on reopening the Mount Geumgang resort to South Korean tourists will be dealt with as two separate issues.
The South Korean government will deliver our stance on the issue to the public after a thorough review of the overall situation.
On Sunday, North Korea proposed to hold fresh talks this Thursday on resuming South Korean tours to the Mount Geumgang resort, offering to discuss Seoul's concerns like ensuring personal safety and protecting South Korean properties. The resort has been closed to South Koreans since 2008 after a tourist from the south was fatally shot by a North Korean guard. And while the North accepted Seoul's offer for Red Cross talks on resuming reunions for families separated during the Korean War on Friday, the two are engaged in a tug-of-war on the venue of the meeting. Pyongyang has proposed to meet at the Mount Geumgang resort, while Seoul has reiterated that the tourist village of Panmunjom is the most ideal site due to the convenience of its location. Meanwhile, a South Korean communications and power inspection team made its second trip to Kaesong on Monday to check up on the facilities at the complex, which have been closed for more than 4 months now. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
And while the two Koreas are making efforts to revive dialogue, South Korea and the U.S. have started their joint training exercise, the Ulchi Freedom Guardian. But unlike in the past, Pyongyang has so far refrained from condemning the drills. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea and the U.S. have kicked off on Monday their annual 12-day joint training exercise. The computer simulation-aided joint Ulchi Freedom Guardian drill mobilizes roughly 50,000 Koreans and 30,000 U.S. troops. The main purpose of the exercise is to maintain security on the Korean peninsula, while upholding joint defense capabilities between the two allies. In this year's exercise, observers from the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission, which ensures the implementation of the Korean War Armistice Agreement, along with 7 countries in the United Nations Command, will monitor the drills. Along with this military exercise, Seoul has launched its annual 4-day local emergency drill to measure the government's readiness for dealing with terror situations and military threats from the north. Unlike other years in which North Korea has lashed out against the joint exercises, North Korea has so far kept mum on the issue, with experts saying it is due to recent progress on the inter-Korean relations. Pyongyang had conventionally condemned the joint training drills, claiming they are a prelude to war, disregarding Seoul and Washington's argument that they are for defense purposes only. The two Koreas remain technically at war after the Korean War ended with the Armistice Agreement. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has emphasized the importance of maintaining a firm national security posture at all times, saying crises often come in moments of peace when a country has taken its mind off of war. At a special cabinet meeting on the first day of the annual Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercise, President Park said preparing for a national emergency situation is indispensable when it comes to keeping the nation safe. She ordered all government offices to actively participate in this year's drills to train for real-life situations. In underlining her determination to fully prepare for any contingency, the president also convened a National Security Council meeting for the first time since taking office in February. And President Park Geun-hye has ordered her cabinet to come up with measures to tackle skyrocketing rental prices here in Korea and pledged to do what she can to help solve the problem. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports.
Crazy jeonse prices. This is how Koreans these days are describing Korea's unique housing system of lump sum rental deposits. The country's unstable housing market has even forced people with enough money to buy their own homes outright to turn to long-term leases, pushing up the jeonse prices even higher. The year-on-year increase in jeonse prices of apartments in the Seoul metropolitan area has doubled since last year to 4.8% this year. With more of a burden on the nation's middle class, commercial banks in Korea have announced plans to raise the limit for jeonse loans in the coming days. However, President Park says the measures aren't enough and will not fundamentally solve the problem. During a cabinet meeting Monday morning, President Park ordered her cabinet members to work together with political parties to come up with regulations that could allow both lessors and lessees to make reasonable and predictable contracts. She vowed to put top priority on the matter during the latter half of the year. The president also promised to focus on revitalizing the economy and creating more jobs. In particular, she called on the National Assembly to quickly pass the revised Foreigner Investment Promotion Bill, which would ease regulations on foreign companies. She pointed out that more than $1.8 billion in foreign investment has been put on hold due to the delay in the passage of the bill, and stressed that it would be a huge loss for the country should the foreign companies scrap their investment plans in Korea and take them to other countries instead. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
When the South Korean government announces the winner of its $7.4 billion contract to buy 60 advanced fighter jets next month, it appears likely that the Boeing F-15 Silent Eagle will get the nod. The Defense Acquisition Program Administration said Sunday that one of the two remaining finalists had been disqualified after abruptly changing its contractual agreements. The bidder was later said to be the European Aeronautic Defense and Space Company with its Eurofighter Typhoon. The multi-billion-dollar competition was narrowed to a two-way race between Boeing and EADS last week after the two firms made bids within Korea's budget. A three-member UN panel will officially begin its investigation into North Korea's human rights abuses today. Members of the Commission of Inquiry who arrived in Seoul over the weekend were scheduled to meet with South Korean officials as well as a number of leading human rights activists on Monday. Starting Tuesday, the group will hold hearings for 5 days at Yonsei University, where some 30 witnesses are expected to testify about the North's human rights violations, including torture and arbitrary detention. The panel's findings will be presented at the UN General Assembly in New York in October. A final report will be submitted to the UN Human Rights Council next March.
Samsung Electronics, the world's largest television manufacturer, held its top place in the European TV market for the first half of this year. The Korean tech giant posted a market share of 38% in the January to June period, according to data by market research company GfK. Samsung made up for almost 40% of Europe's LED television market and accounted for more than 44% in the 3D and smart TV markets. LG Electronics came in second with a market share of 16.6%, followed by Philips at 9.9%. Turning now to the ongoing crisis in Egypt. The country's military has declared that it will not tolerate any further violent protests as security forces continue to arrest hundreds of members of ousted President Mohamed Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood. Our Geumgang has the latest.
Addressing the current unrest, Egypt Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi went on state TV Sunday to say there was room for people of all political and religious persuasions to live together in Egypt. But he also warned the military would not be silent in the face of violence.
The will of the Egyptian people is free and they can choose whoever they want to rule them. The army and the police right now are the guardians of the will of the people.
Some welcomed the statement, saying violence should not be tolerated within the country.
To be honest, what he is saying is correct. We reject violence whether it's on one side or the other. Egyptians are the ones dying and further bloodshed should be forbidden.
Supporters of deposed President Morsi and those protesting the military coup are faced with growing uncertainty as more leaders of Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood are arrested by the day. The army enforced a dawn-to-dusk curfew in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, on Sunday, with soldiers standing by in armored vehicles and manned checkpoints. The military unseated Morsi on July 3rd after millions of Egyptians took to the streets to demand that he step down as he failed to show commitment to democracy. More than 830 people have been killed in Egypt since security forces forcibly broke up two pro-Morsy protest camps in Cairo last Wednesday. Geumgang, Arirang News.
A volcano in southern Japan erupted Sunday, shooting up a giant plume of smoke into the air. Large amounts of volcanic ash fell in the region, causing delays in public transport and forcing people to take cover. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
An ash cloud loomed over southern Japan after Mount Sakurajima erupted on Sunday afternoon, blasting an ash plume of thousands of meters into the air and casting a dark spell over the region. The 1,117-meter or 3,665 feet volcano near Kagoshima City began to erupt around 4:30 p.m. local time. Volcanic ash swept the northern and central parts of the city, causing a delay in train services and forcing drivers to use their headlights in broad daylight. Residents of Kagoshima and tourists held handkerchiefs to their mouths and wore masks for protection, while others shielded themselves with umbrellas. No injuries or deaths have been reported. The plume of smoke reached a spectacular height of 5,000 meters, the highest record since data was compiled in 1955. The Japanese Meteorological Observatory also reported a pyroclastic flow, a current of gas and rock discovered roughly 1 kilometer southeast down the slope of the volcano. Sunday's eruption of Mount Sakurajima was the 500th this year, which is about 950 kilometers southwest of Tokyo. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Shifting gears now, Chuseok, one of Korea's biggest holidays, is just about 1 month away now, and households are already thinking ahead, preparing gifts for family and friends. In response to the sluggish economy, local retail chains are slashing prices to attract customers and ensure higher sales. Our Paul Yi shows us the latest consumer trends hitting local markets.
Operations here at a gift set packaging plant in Incheon are in full swing, with employees gearing up for one of the busiest retail seasons ahead of the Chuseok holiday. The factory plant has been running non-stop since last month, as more than half of Korea's annually produced cooking oil is expected to be sold through holiday gift sets this year. Major retail chains are already showcasing this year's line of Korean Thanksgiving gifts on store shelves. However, due to tough economic times, consumer tastes have shifted toward more frugal and practical gift ideas.
Since the cost of goods has gone up, I'm thinking of getting medium to low-priced household items. Things like toothpaste or cooking oil are what I have in mind right now.
Higher food prices and fierce competition resulted in lower than expected sales numbers last year among retailers. It's prompted many local companies to shift their pricing strategy in order to hit the $20 to $30 sweet spot on the majority of their gift sets. In particular, gift sets with apples and pears will see a price drop of up to 20% compared to last year. Popular products such as Hanu or Korean beef will also benefit from a price cut of up to 10%. The price of other traditional gifts such as dried yellow corvina and anchovies will remain unchanged on year, as an outbreak of red tide has devastated local fish stocks. Meanwhile, products with mushrooms and mixed nuts will see a sharp price hike. The Korean market size for Chuseok gift sets is expected to be worth nearly $448 million, with an optimistic growth forecast this year as retailers adjust their product offerings to reflect the prolonged economic slowdown. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
A line of current and former National Intelligence Service agents and police officers took witness stands at the National Assembly today as part of an ongoing parliamentary probe into allegations that the spy agency meddled in last year's presidential election. Our Kim Hyun-ji reports.
At Monday's hearing involving NIS agents, a giant screen wall was set up so that their faces could not be seen. Behind the wall were 2 active and 2 inactive agents. A female NIS agent who stands accused of posting negative online comments about opposition presidential candidates before the December election was among them. The agent said she was only fulfilling her duties as an agent.
I never received orders to meddle in the presidential election. I only did my duties to respond to North Korea's propaganda online.
But the agent refused to answer many of the questions posed, saying she didn't want to incriminate herself in the event she's put on trial at a later date. Kwon Eun-hee, a police officer who led the investigation into the spy agency scandal at Seoul's Suseok police station, said she received a phone call from former Seoul Metropolitan Police Chief Kim Yong-pan on December 16th. Kwon said that Kim told her not to file a request for a warrant to search the apartment from where the NIS agent was found to have posted sensitive political comments.
What Kim Yong-pan did was unfair because it tapered with our investigation at Suseok Station.
Kwon said she had asked the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency to analyze all files saved in the female NIS agent's computer, including 100 keywords. But she said the police agency cut that number down to just 4 and then released the results of the investigation at 11 p.m. on December 16th, just 3 days before the election. Other high-ranking NIS agents at the hearing said there may be posted comments online that others may have judged as being inappropriate or problematic, but they claim they only posted them to effectively counter North Korean propaganda in cyberspace. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
It's Monday, and I'm sure some of us are suffering from what some people might call Monday-itis. Viewers living in Korea weren't all that thrilled to start another week with the heat wave going strong as well. And those of you who have just returned from summer vacation, you may be going through an especially tough time trying to readjust to your daily routine.
Now, to give us some tips on how to recover your changed biorhythms, we're joined by Dr. Kim Eun-gi, Professor of Biological Engineering at Inha University. Good to have you with us.
Okay.
So I hear we all have this so-called biological clock in us.
Right.
How does this clock work?
Actually, in our human body, there exists a biological clock inside the brain and just behind the eye, and which is connected to the eye. That means eye gets light through the eye and the signal to the biological clock. So at noon, for example, the intensity of sunlight is the maximum, and the biological clock understand that this is the noon. Then start the 24-hour biological clock. It's 24-hour timer. And during the 24-hour cycle, it produces a signal molecule to the body. Melatonin, a sleep-inducing hormone, for example, is produced in the body by the signs of the biological clock. So the amount of the melatonin, for example, reaches the maximum at 11 p.m. At that time, you fall asleep. So interestingly, once the biological clock in your brain is set up, by daily exposure to sunlight, it goes on automatically by itself. So you can get up early in the morning as usual, even if you are in the dark grave. I mean, that is working automatically.
Okay. Well, people have different lifestyles. And Dr. Kim, I believe some of us are creatures of the night who refuse to sleep at night and be more active back then. And then most of us, I believe, the normal ones, they are morning people or are forced to be. How or where does the difference begin between these two parties?
I see. In the brain, there are the series of genes involved in the biological clock. The one of the gene called the PR1 is responsible for the making the type of the person. So the difference of the person, either morning lark or night owl, comes from the difference of time, which takes from the production of the signal molecule to reach and to act. For example, the wake-up signal. So if you are the morning lark person, the wake-up signal arrives around 6 a.m. in the morning. But if you are a night owl, it comes 1 hour later. So around 50% of our people belongs to either morning lark or night owl, and 50% other remains are in the middle. But you can change. You can change from to one side by your effort. That means you can change by your effort.
Well, that, I guess, means I should make more efforts to try to be a morning person. And doctor, what kinds of symptoms do we experience when something goes wrong with the biological clock?
Actually, the biological clock produces a series of molecules and send the signal to the organ in our body. So, therefore, if the cycle is normal, then the organ functions properly. But if the cycle is disturbed by some reason, then the organ inside our body, for example, heart or brain, will not function efficiently. So if that disturbance is short or temporary, like a jet lag, if you travel to New York, then you can overcome easily. But if that disturbance is long and continuous and permanent, then it will definitely affect your health. So in short, recent research showed that the Alzheimer or Parkinson's disease is related to the biological clock. So that means the biological clock is related to our health.
Okay, it looks like traditional tips never seem to fail us, like getting to bed early, getting up early, and that seems to be the biggest cure or medicine for everything. But then some of us, we need to make those adjustments, right? If we need to make the changes from a night owl to a morning person. And also, if you're forced to be that way, can you give us some tips on how we can recover or how we can actually force the change on us if we want to or need to?
I mean, if you travel to New York.
Right, or if you just want to change your routine or your biorhythm from being a morning person or a night owl or vice versa.
I think we can change from the night owl to medium or medium to another side, but changing to extreme is very difficult. But when you travel to, for example, to overcome the jet lag, for example, we, as a human being, it is difficult to not to have that kind of jet lag if you travel. It is natural to have a kind of jet lag, but the best way to overcome that kind of the jet lag is to work in the daytime under the strong sunlight. Then the eye gets signal from the sun and it gives the signal to brain that, okay, this is time, this is noon. Then the brain shifts the cycle to the local time. So that best way is to work under the sun. So that is the best way to overcome that. So another way is to take the melatonin, for example, which is sleep-inducing hormone, to the temporary short-time jet lag. That's the best way. So generally, it will take about 1 day for 1 hour time difference. So if you travel for 7-hour difference distance, then it will take about 1 week to overcome naturally.
So we'll turn to some aid from modern medicine and Mother Nature, sun, for the necessary changes.
I think Mother Nature might be the best one.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kim, for your insights today.
Okay.
And now let's get a check on the weather conditions with Hannah Kim. So, Hannah, although temperatures in Seoul are slowly easing up, I hear that there are still heat wave warnings in Geumgang province.
That's right, Daniel, and it's so hard to focus when it's this hot, and so students in Ulsan now have shortened school hours.
Well, I guess the children of Ulsan aren't complaining too much about that.
That's right, Town, and the shorter school hours will continue until the heat wave alerts are fully lifted. But the good news is that temperatures are slowly cooling down in the Gyeongsang region. Now, tomorrow it will still be hot, but not as bad as it's been, and we'll have mostly cloudy skies. Please also note that there may be some light passing showers tonight in the Gangwon province, and in return, we may see cooler temperatures. Now, if we take a closer look at tomorrow's forecast, Seoul will start off the morning at 24 and reach 34 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, cities in the south like Daegu and Busan will peak at 33 and 31 degrees. Down on Jeju Island, you'll have mostly cloudy skies with breaks of sun in the daytime. Daejeon will hit 34 while Dokdo cools off to 27. Well, that's all I have for you today. I'm Hannah Kim. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for that, Hannah. And that's all from us. Thank you for watching.
Keep it tuned to Arirang for more news coming up.